The television went black right as the old man on screen whispered, "She never disappeared willingly." Then Ethan heard his son-in-law say, calm as anything, "Enough of this rubbish." The silence inside the Brisbane apartment felt heavier than the storm outside. Rain hammered the balcony rails, while the reflection of the dead TV stared back at Ethan like a dark mirror. He slowly turned his head toward Callum, who stood beside the wall socket with the plug hanging loose in his hand. "You serious?" Ethan asked. Callum shrugged. "Mate, you've been watching this true crime garbage every night for weeks. It's one bloody episode. It's poison. All this paranoia, disappearances, murder stories. It gets into your head." Ethan stared at him. Something about the way Callum said it felt rehearsed, controlled. Like he wasn't annoyed, like he was nervous. From the kitchen, Ethan's daughter Mia tried to lighten the mood. "Dad, just let him have his weird little power trip." But Callum didn't smile. That was the first thing Ethan noticed. The second was Mia avoiding eye contact entirely. The apartment suddenly felt unfamiliar. Too tidy, too quiet. Like a display home, pretending to be lived in. Ethan picked up the remote from the couch. "You could have just asked me to turn it down." Callum plugged the television back in without apologizing. Didn't mean anything by it. But Ethan had spent 30 years working rail security across Queensland. He knew tension when he saw it. Tiny details always gave people away. Breathing, eyes, timing. And Callum looked like a bloke trying very hard not to panic. Ethan left not long after. The rain had eased into a cold drizzle over Fortitude Valley. As he walked toward his ute parked beside the curb, he glanced up at Mia's balcony. She was standing alone now, watching him leave. Not waving, just watching. Something twisted in his gut. The next morning, his phone rang at 5:12 a.m. "Maya." Ethan answered instantly. "You all right?" Silence, then shallow breathing. "Mia?" Her voice cracked. "Dad, Callum's gone." Ethan sat upright in bed. "What do you mean gone?" "He left during the night. His wallet's here. His car's downstairs. I woke up and the front door was open." Ethan was already pulling jeans on. "Did you call the police?" He took his phone. That stopped him. People didn't leave their wallet. They didn't leave their car. But they always took their phone. Unless they were planning something. 25 minutes later, Ethan arrived at the apartment. Mia looked wrecked. Mascara smeared beneath red eyes, oversized hoodie hanging off her shoulders. She hugged him hard. Too hard. Inside, the apartment felt colder than the storm outside. Ethan immediately noticed the television remote lying smashed near the couch. "Mia." She looked away. "What happened after I left?" "Nothing." "That's a lie." She swallowed, then finally said, "We argued." "About me?" "About the show." Ethan frowned. "You had an argument over a bloody TV program?" He hated that you watched those stories. "Why?" "I don't know." But she said it too quickly. Ethan moved through the apartment slowly. His instincts were screaming now. Tiny details lined up wrong. Kitchen drawer half open. Balcony door unlocked. Wet footprints near the hallway that had been badly wiped. Then he noticed something else. The spare bedroom, its door was shut. Maya immediately stepped between Ethan and the hallway. "Dad, don't." He stopped. "Why? It's just messy." Mia. Her breathing changed again. Fast. Panicked. Ethan gently moved past her and opened the door. The room was almost empty except for stacked storage boxes and an old standing lamp. But in the middle of the carpet sat a black duffel bag. Fresh mud covered the bottom. Ethan looked back at his daughter. "What's in the bag?" Mia's face turned pale. "Callum told me never to open it." Ethan slowly crouched beside it. The zip trembled in his fingers. Then he pulled it open. Inside was a bundle of soaked clothing, a burner phone, and beneath them, a woman's driver license. The photo showed a blonde woman in her 30s, missing for 11 years. The same woman from the true crime show. Callum had switched off the night before. Ethan felt the blood drain from his face. For a second, the apartment disappeared around him. All he could see was the license trembling in his hand and the smiling woman in the photograph, staring back from another life. Sophie Mercer, missing from the Gold Coast since 2015. The same case he'd been obsessively watching all week. Maya stepped backward like she already regretted letting him open the bag. "Dad, I didn't know that was in there." Ethan looked up sharply. "You've never opened it?" "No. You expect me to believe that?" Tears welled instantly in her eyes. "He told me it was work stuff. Callum works in bloody insurance." "I know." Ethan stood slowly. His chest felt tight now. He remembered Callum unplugging the television, the exact moment the documentary mentioned a new witness. The way his jaw locked. The way he refused to look at the screen. Not annoyance, fear. Ethan grabbed the burner phone from the bag. "Dead battery. When did he bring this here?" "I don't know. Mia, a few weeks ago maybe." He stared at her. "And you thought nothing of your husband hiding muddy bags in spare rooms?" Her face crumpled. "You don't understand what he's been like lately." The room went quiet. Ethan softened slightly. "What's been happening?" Mia wrapped her arms around herself. He stopped sleeping properly. Started checking locks 3 or 4 times a night. He'd wake up sweating. Sometimes I'd catch him standing on the balcony at 2 in the morning just staring down at the street. Did he say why? He thought someone was following him. Ethan's stomach tightened harder. "Who?" He never said. The rain outside thickened again, tapping softly against the windows, while Ethan examined the license closer. Expired 11 years ago. Water damage around the edges. Dirt caught in the plastic sleeve. Recently buried, or recently dug up. His phone buzzed suddenly. Unknown number. He answered carefully. "Yeah?" For 2 seconds, nothing came through except static. Then a man whispered, "You should left the bag alone." The line disconnected. Maya's eyes widened instantly. "Who was that?" Ethan didn't answer. His pulse had started hammering now. He called the number back. Disconnected. Of course. He grabbed his keys immediately. "You're coming with me." "To the police." Mia froze. "No." Ethan turned slowly. "What? You can't take that bag there." "Why the hell not?" Her breathing quickened again. Panic spread visibly across her face. "Because Callum said if anyone found it, people would get hurt." Ethan stared at her in disbelief. "What people?" But Mia couldn't answer. A knock hit the apartment door. 3 slow knocks. Both of them jumped. Ethan motioned for silence. Another 3 knocks. Not aggressive, podden. Like whoever stood outside already knew they were home. Ethan moved quietly toward the kitchen drawer and pulled out a carving knife. Mia whispered shakily, "Dad, stay behind me." The knock stopped. Then came a calm male voice through the door. "Mia, it's Detective Harris, Queensland Police." Ethan frowned. No sirens, no partner, no sound of radios. Still Mia rushed toward the door in relief before Ethan caught her arm. "Wait." He stepped closer himself. "Badge number?" Silence. Then the voice replied, "Sorry? Your badge number." Another pause. Too long. Then footsteps suddenly moved away from the apartment, fast. Ethan yanked the door open and sprinted into the hallway. Empty. Only the distant sound of stairwell doors banging somewhere below. He rushed to the balcony overlooking the street, just in time to see a man in a dark hoodie climb into a white ute parked across the road. The vehicle sped off instantly. No plates. Ethan stood frozen. Someone knew about the bag already. Behind him, Mia started crying quietly. "Dad, I think Callum's in trouble." Ethan turned back inside. "No." His voice had gone cold now. "I think Callum put himself in trouble a long time ago." He looked again at Sophie Mercer's license, sitting in his hand. Then something hit him hard. The documentary. Last night's unfinished episode. The new witness they mentioned right before. Callum switched off the television. Ethan rushed to the lounge and turned the TV back on. After fumbling through the streaming app, he found the episode and skipped ahead. The narrator's voice filled the room. In a shocking new development, investigators recently uncovered reports connecting Sophie Mercer to a private recovery clinic outside Toowoomba. Former staff now claim Sophie may have been alive for months after her disappearance. A photograph flashed onto the screen. The clinic staff standing together outside the building in 2015. Ethan's entire body went still. One of the workers smiling beside the entrance was younger, thinner, but unmistakable Callum. Maya stared at the television like her brain refused to process what she was seeing. That's not him. But even she didn't sound convinced. The image stayed on screen, while the narrator continued talking about missing records, corrupted police files, and former clinic employees who had disappeared over the years. Ethan barely heard any of it now. His focus stayed locked on Callum's younger face, smiling beside that clinic entrance like an ordinary bloke living an ordinary life. Except nothing about this was ordinary anymore. Mia grabbed the remote and paused the frame. He told me he worked construction back then. Ethan's jaw tightened. Clearly he lied. No, there has to be some explanation. Like what? She couldn't answer. The room suddenly felt smaller. The storm outside darkened the windows until the apartment looked sealed off from the world. Ethan pulled out his phone and searched the clinic's name. Redbank Recovery Center, closed in late 2015 after financial investigations and accusations of patient abuse. No criminal charges ever stuck. Half the staff vanished interstate before formal questioning even began, including Callum, apparently. Ethan looked at Mia carefully. How long have you known him? 7 years. And in 7 years you never once saw this side of him. He wasn't like this before. Her voice cracked. He used to be gentle. Used to. That word lingered heavily. Ethan thought back over the past year. Callum becoming distant, protective, controlling. Mia slowly seeing less of her friends, less of him. Every family dinner ending with Callum checking his phone every 5 minutes like he expected bad news. The signs had been there. Ethan just never connected them. His phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. Mia immediately whispered, "Don't answer." But Ethan already had. This time there was no static, only breathing. Then Callum's voice came through low and urgent. "You need to listen carefully. Mia's here," Ethan said coldly. Silence. Then Callum exhaled shakily. "Good. Keep her with you." "Where are you?" "I can't say." "You're connected to Sophie Mercer." Another silence, longer this time. Then Callum said quietly, "You have no idea what's really happening. Start explaining." "I didn't kill her." Ethan felt Mia grab his arm instantly. Callum continued before either of them could speak. "I swear to God, Ethan, I tried to help her." "Then why is her license in your bag?" "Because someone wanted it hidden." "Who?" "You can't trust the police." Ethan almost laughed. "Mate, you sound insane. I'm serious." Callum's breathing became uneven. "There are people involved in this who never wanted Sophie found. People with money. Connections. Who are you talking about?" But Callum ignored the question. "Did anyone come to the apartment?" Ethan's eyes narrowed. "How do you know that? Did they identify themselves as police?" A chill crawled through Ethan's spine. "Yes." "Then get out of there now." The line suddenly crackled. Callum's voice dropped into a whisper. "They found me." Then came a loud metallic bang, tires screeching, a grunt of pain, and the call cut dead. "Mia." Ethan grabbed his keys instantly. "We're leaving." "Where do we go?" But before he could answer, movement outside caught his eye. A dark sedan had pulled across the street below. Then another. 4 men stepped out. Not uniforms, not police. All wearing black jackets. One of them looked directly up toward the apartment balcony, straight at Ethan. "Jesus Christ," Ethan muttered. The men entered the building. Maya's face turned white. "Dad, get your shoes. What's happening?" "I don't know yet." But deep down, Ethan was starting to understand something terrifying. This wasn't about a missing woman anymore. It was about something much bigger people had spent 11 years burying. The apartment buzzer suddenly rang downstairs. Then rang again. Again aggressive now. Ethan pulled Mia toward the hallway. Fire stairs. Move. They rushed out the back corridor just as heavy pounding exploded against the apartment door behind them. Queensland Police. Ethan didn't stop. The stairwell echoed with their footsteps as they descended rapidly. Mia was crying openly now, struggling to breathe. Halfway down, Ethan heard another door slam below them. Someone coming up, fast. He grabbed Mia and shoved her behind the stairwell landing wall, just as two men in black jackets rushed past underneath. Not police. One of them carried a handgun. Maya covered her mouth to stop herself screaming. The men disappeared upward toward the apartment level. Ethan waited 3 seconds, then kept moving down. They burst into the underground car park and sprinted toward Ethan's ute, but Ethan stopped dead halfway there. His driver's side door stood open, and taped across the windshield was a single photograph: Sophie Mercer, alive, terrified, bound to a chair. On the back, written in black marker, were 5 words: Callum, never told you everything. Ethan ripped the photograph off the windshield with shaking hands. Maya stared at it for half a second before turning away, horrified. Oh my God. The picture wasn't old. That was the first thing Ethan noticed. The paper was clean, fresh print, no fading, no creases from time. Sophie Mercer looked exhausted and terrified, but older than the smiling woman from the license photo. Mid-40s now. Alive long after the world believed she vanished, which meant someone had kept her hidden for 11 years, or she'd been running from something worse. A sharp metallic bang echoed through the underground car park above them. The stairwell door. The men were coming down. Get in the ute, Ethan snapped. He shoved the photo into his jacket while Mia scrambled inside. Ethan turned the ignition just as 2 black-jacketed men burst around the concrete pillar ahead. One pointed immediately. There! Ethan slammed the accelerator. Tires screamed against concrete as the ute launched forward. One of the men stepped aside barely in time, while the other raised his handgun. A gunshot exploded through the car park. The rear window shattered violently behind Mia's head. She screamed. Ethan swerved hard up the exit ramp and burst onto the wet Brisbane street, narrowly missing a taxi. Horns blared behind them while rain hammered the cracked windshield. Dad, seatbelt! Mia fumbled it on with trembling hands. Ethan checked the mirror. The dark sedan tore out behind them instantly. Still coming. Who are these people? Mia cried. I think your husband worked for them. Traffic thickened near Ann Street. Ethan cut sharply through a yellow light, weaving between cars while the sedan stayed glued behind them. His pulse thundered in his ears now, old instincts dragging him into survival mode. Rail security taught him one important thing. Panicked people made fatal mistakes. So Ethan forced himself calm. Think the photo, the fake police. Callum disappearing. Sophie alive. One ugly truth slowly formed beneath all of it. Callum hadn't hidden evidence. He'd stolen it. His phone buzzed again through the dashboard compartment. Unknown number. Ethan answered on speaker this time. Callum sounded breathless and injured. Are you with Mia? Yes. Listen carefully. They'll kill you both if they find that photo. Ethan gripped the wheel tighter. Who are they? The people who funded Red Bank. The clinic. It wasn't a recovery clinic. Callum coughed painfully. It was a holding site. Mia stared at the phone. Holding site for what? Silence. Then Callum finally said it. Women. The car went silent except for rain and engines. Ethan felt sick instantly. Callum continued weakly. Rich clients paid for girls no one would miss. Runaways, addicts, sex workers. Sophie found out. She tried exposing them. Mia burst into tears. You worked there? I was 23, Callum whispered. I thought it was private rehab security work until I saw what was happening. You expect us to believe you stayed innocent in all this? Ethan growled. No. That answer hit harder than any denial. Callum's voice broke apart with guilt. I helped cover things up. I moved records, drove girls between locations. I kept telling myself I didn't know the full pictures. But I knew enough. Mia looked destroyed now, like the man she married was collapsing in real time. So why run now? Ethan demanded. Because Sophie contacted me 3 months ago. Everything inside the ute went still. She's alive, Mia whispered. Yes. Where is she? I don't know anymore. Callum sounded close to tears himself now. She said someone inside Queensland Police was protecting the network. She wanted evidence released publicly before they silenced her again. The sedan behind them accelerated suddenly. Closer now. Too close. Ethan swerved around a bus while Callum kept talking fast. The burner phone has encrypted files, videos, names, payments. Enough to destroy everyone involved. Then why hide it? Because they were already watching me. A loud crash exploded behind them as the sedan rammed the ute's rear tray. Maya screamed again. Dad. Ethan fought the steering wheel hard. Callum shouted through the phone. You need to get to Sophie before they do. Where? She told me if anything happened. There was one person she still trusted. Who? But Callum suddenly stopped talking. In the background, Ethan heard footsteps, doors slamming, then a voice called, Mail. We found him. Callum inhaled sharply. Mia. She grabbed the phone desperately. Callum? His voice cracked one final time. I'm sorry for everything. Then came 2 deafening gunshots. The line died instantly. Maya let out a scream. Ethan knew he'd hear for the rest of his life. At that exact moment, the sedan rammed them again, harder. The ute spun violently across the rain-soaked intersection toward oncoming traffic. And Ethan saw a freight truck hurtling straight toward them. The truck's horn blasted through the storm, like a warning from God himself. Ethan yanked the wheel at the last possible second. Metal screamed. The ute clipped the freight truck hard enough to shatter the headlights before spinning across 2 lanes and smashing sideways into a traffic barrier. Airbags exploded through the cabin. Mia cried out in pain beside him as glass rained everywhere. For a moment, the world became white noise and ringing ears. Then Ethan saw the sedan stop 30 meters away. The men were getting out. He forced his door open despite the pain tearing through his shoulder. Mia, move. She was dazed, blood running from a cut above her eyebrow, but conscious. The men started running toward them through the rain. Ethan dragged Mia over the barrier beside the road, just as another car slammed into the wrecked ute behind them. Horns and screams filled the intersection. Chaos bought them seconds. Nothing more. They stumbled into an alleyway between closed cafes while Brisbane's storm swallowed the city in darkness. Ethan's ribs burned with every breath, but he kept moving. Dad, I can't. You can. Behind them came shouting, footsteps, still hunting them. Then Ethan remembered the final thing Callum said. One person Sophie still trusted. He stopped dead. Maya looked at him desperately. What? The documentary. What? The witness they mentioned. Ethan pulled out his phone with trembling hands and searched the unfinished episode again. Fast-forwarding through the narrator's voice, he found the segment. A woman appeared on screen. Gray hair, late 60s. Former nurse Margaret Doyle. The subtitle read, Former Redbank MP, now living in Byron Bay. Ethan immediately understood. Sophie went to her. Headlights suddenly swept across the alley entrance behind them. The men had found them again. Run! Ethan snapped. They burst through the alley exit onto a crowded, wet street. Ethan waved frantically at the first taxi he saw. The driver hesitated only a second before unlocking the doors. Byron Bay, Ethan said breathlessly as they climbed inside. That's 2 hours away, mate. I'll pay double. The taxi launched into traffic just as the dark sedan reached the intersection behind them. Maya sat shaking silently beside him for almost 20 minutes before finally whispering, Was any of it real? Ethan looked out at the rain-covered highway lights. Yes. Even the girls? He nodded once. Maya folded inward after that. Quiet. Broken by the time they reached Byron Bay just before dawn, the storm had faded into coastal fog. Margaret Doyle's address led them to a weathered beach house overlooking the water. Lights were still on inside. Ethan knocked hard. No answer. He knocked again. Then the door slowly creaked open on its own. Every instinct inside him turned cold. The house was silent. Too silent. They stepped carefully inside. Furniture overturned. Broken glass across the kitchen floor. Blood smeared along the hallway wall. "Mia, stay behind me." Ethan moved toward the back room and stopped frozen in the doorway. Margaret Doyle sat dead in her chair, facing the ocean windows. A single gunshot wound through her chest, and beside her, alive but trembling violently beneath a blanket, was Sophie Mercer, older now, hollow-eyed, traumatized beyond words. She looked up at Ethan like she already knew exactly who he was. "You're Callum's father-in-law," she whispered. Ethan nodded slowly. Tears filled her eyes instantly. "He tried to save me." Mia broke down completely behind him. Sophie stared toward the ocean for several seconds before speaking again. There were politicians involved, police, businessmen. They used Red Bank for years. Her voice shook violently. Callum helped them once, but eventually he started helping girls escape. Ethan felt physically sick. "He stayed because leaving meant death," Sophie whispered. "But 3 months ago, he contacted me again. Said he wanted to finally expose everyone." Mia covered her face, sobbing uncontrollably. "Where's the evidence?" Ethan asked quietly. Sophie looked directly at him. "Already released." Ethan frowned. Then every phone inside the room erupted simultaneously with notification alerts. News headlines flooded the screens. "Arrest expunged in massive Queensland. Corruption scandal. Leaked files. Expose human trafficking network." Senior officials implicated Callum had done it, even knowing it would get him killed. Outside, dawn slowly rose over the ocean. For the first time in 11 years, Sophie Mercer was no longer missing. But Mia stood there crying for a man she suddenly realized she never truly knew at all. And Ethan could not stop hearing Callum's final words repeating in his head. "I'm sorry for everything.